because I'm not taking it anymore. I'll stand here. I think then I can speak to that. So in summary, this is what we're going to go through today, is our primary focus in life, in the early life, is to gain technical competency, right? You go to school and so on and so forth. We do that for 16, 18, 20, some people do it for 30 years, like doctors and so on and so forth. But then when you come into an organization, they hire for three things: competency, fit, and future potential. Always, always. And so another thing that we find, some people find it early, some people find it later on in life, is that the structure is vastly different from the school structure that we're used to. And then that creates a mismatch. Moreover, if you see in your organization, there are very few formal leadership roles. The triangle goes like that, and so very few people get promoted. And so building a brand is critical for your success. It's not a want, it's a need. If you don't do it, there's an issue. But we don't know how to build a brand. And so what I tell my clients is, that's fine, you've done the schooling, but there is a path they need to take to get to that stage, how they can build their brand, how they can project a brand, and then get that promotion or get that job. So let's dive a bit more deeper into this. So like I mentioned, primary focus is gaining technical competency. So you go to school, you study, then you study a lot harder, you get a degree, and you graduate, you get a job. And so you're technically competent. Everybody thinks that, and you've made your parents happy, you've made your neighborhood happy. But that's the reality. That's 500,000 others are technically competent. And this data is from StatsCan for 2013, right? All over Canada, 500,000 students graduate every year. And that brings me to my next point, is why is it that way? It's because of the school framework and what we're used to for 16 to 18 years of our lives. So if you think about it, the school framework is designed for throughput. I mean, how many people were in your first grade, second grade, 12th grade, first year of university, fourth year of university? Probably around 15, 20, 30 people, right? And then the focus of education is learning, like for school is learning. So it's the government's responsibility to provide a decent platform so people can get educated. And then there's ample support systems. So if there is an issue, you go to a parent or you go to a school advisor or a career advisor, right? So you know exactly what to do, where to go. The framework is understood by your parents, by you, and everything is great. I think the fourth point that many people don't realize is you were the client for 16 to 18 years of your life. You paid them money for a service. So they provided you a service. Maybe your parents did, you didn't, but that's fine. Like basically, you're the consumers, they were the customers, and so they paid money for a certain service. So you got that service, and then you get a degree, right? And this is the framework that we're really, really used to. So hold that thought. We'll come to that later. And then you come into a company, your first job interview, your second, your third, your 10th job interview. Any company hires for competency, fit, and future potential, right? And when I say competency, it's technical competency. So if you look at all of this, there's about 25 of these skills, right? This is in order of what they want versus what's least desirable. And the color coding is something that we'll go through, but the technical is the red. So 5 out of 25 is what they're really looking for from a technically competent perspective. Everything else is soft skills. So 20 out of 25 are soft skills. So if I had to boil it down, you get communication and teamwork, leadership and managerial skills, and competency, right? In no particular order, but so you have fit, which is communication and teamwork. You have potential, which is leadership and managerial. So how can you perform a manager's job? Are you perceived as a leader? And then competency is, can you do your job successfully? And then, if you're an engineer, can you stamp drawings? If you are somebody from finance, do you have a CFA, CPA, and so on and so forth. So gaining technical competency is only table stakes. You have 5 skills out of 25 that are technically, that's what your company is looking for. So remember that framework that I discussed early on? So this is the school framework, and this is the professionals framework. So we know that the companies are looking for something more than what we gain from our schools, and the framework is different. So there's 2 things that are changing. So remember, you were the client, but you now reside in the supply chain. That means you're serving another client. So the dimensions are totally different here. It's 180 degrees. If there's something I want you to remember, it's that. That is very important. I mean, when I was told about this by my mentor, it was like a light bulb went off, and I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's why people don't hear me. Like, I need to speak up and so on and so forth. So learning was the primary focus. Over here, progress is the primary focus. In an organization, everyone's trying to get that promotion. Everyone's trying to speak up. Everyone's trying to differentiate themselves. And then few people get promoted to the next level. But in school, pretty much everyone goes to the next class. I mean, and university is a bit lower. And then Ample was known about the support system, but over here, there is no support system, right? So you don't know how to get those soft skills. How do I get the mentorship that I need? How do I find a sponsor? What's the difference between a sponsor and a mentor? How do I have those difficult conversations with my boss about a raise or, about the promotions? And we'll go through a few examples. So the key thing over here is understand the environment that you're in, and every company is going to be exactly the same, because in every company, we're on the supply side, not on the demand side. So we're not really generating money for the company, like we're not giving money, but we're providing a supply chain to generate that income for the company. Do you guys have any questions here? I just want to stop and ask if somebody has any questions. Okay. So if you think about this, this is how an organization is, right? There's senior leadership, mid-management, staff, just to dumb it down quite a bit. This is how Suncor is, this is how Shell is, this is how any other company is generally. And so the objective is this, right? You go from staff to mid-management to senior leadership. It depends on different people and what their career objectives are, but generally this is the trend that I've seen, at least what my students want out of this whole process. But if you see your senior leadership, even at Suncor or any major company, they project a strong, cohesive brand, which is in alliance with the corporation's core values. So for example, Tim mentioned something about diversity inclusion. The top leadership believes in that. And then the organization will look for those pointers when they're trying to promote you, right? So these kind of things are very important. But this is true for most organizations. I'm gonna, there's a caveat here. The tech industry is a bit different. Like for example, Uber and what they do and all that stuff. I think they're not mature, but all the mature organizations are like this. So if we had to look at this at a floor level, there is limited upward mobility. That is the crux. If there's one slide I'd like you to remember, it's this one, that the triangle is what it is, but if you had to articulate that, this is what it looked like. So you have a lot of people here who have competency, fit, and future potential. So a lot of people are hired into the lowest levels at the staff level when you start off your job. Then very few people move up. And if you see, competency is tested first. Then future potential, as the text gets bigger, the importance for the company, that becomes more important, right? So you see fit and future potential are becoming more important as you get into middle management. And when you're there, if you start, projecting fit or your personal brand, then they see future potential. And that becomes very important for people who move up. So your middle management who are slated to become senior management, they show the highest future potential. And then the guys who become C-suite are the guys who, or the men and women, I should say, are strong. They project a strong brand. They understand frameworks, the different frameworks between the school and the professional framework, and they project a very, very strong personal brand. Like, I can't insist that enough. So if there's one slide I'd like you to remember, it's this. And I think we can probably hand out copies later on or on the website, right? Adding to this, many global companies, and some of them were in Calgary, they will determine your future potential within the first or the second year. I was in a company that gave you a score as to how far you could go in an organization. Literally, they give you a rank. That was your score. So either you're senior executive grade, your leadership level, or then you get some numbers. And so they were very clear in their communication as to this is what we think you will be in 5, 10, 15 years from now. So that was the first communication. The next communication is after 2 years, and they give you pointers as to what you can change about yourself. And they're all about soft skills. And that to me was news, because that was the first global company I worked for. And I did not realize that there were so many people watching that the company had a metric system to rank us and take the top 10% early on, and then prioritize where they went, what projects they got, and so on and so forth. I mean, within the first 6 months, I think any company will start doing this, whether you're aware of it, whether they're aware of it or not. But this happens. This is just human nature. That company made it very clear. There was a very strict process. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of companies from Calgary, at least the big ones, start moving to that system, because at the end of the day, there has to be some metric to rationalize who gets the promotion, right? There has to be a fair way of deciding. Does Suncor do this? Or do you know they do this formally? I'm pretty sure they do this. So a question I have for you. So look at the lowest level over here, right? That's when you guys got your first job. How many of you, so what percentage of your colleagues or that cohort got to the next level? Like, what percentage? Is it 5, 10? Like, think about the class. 5, you said? Yeah. 5% got to the mid-management level. Anybody else has a number, like a higher number? 20, 30? No? 30%, right? So 5 to 30%, that's around about this. That's true. Very, very few companies will have the whole cohort go up. The triangle gets smaller as you go up, basically. It's just physics. So think about it. Like, how many of your cohorts went to the next level? How many of their cohorts will go to the next level? So that is something that's very personal, and I'd love for you to remember this slide, and we'll provide this slide to you and put it on your desk. Like, this is very important. So let's get into the more details. What is a brand, right? So basically, it's, putting it simple, brand is what people think of you. Who you are as a person, who you are as a professional, based on multiple facets. And how people build their perceptions is 2 ways. So first is professional interfacing, so in team meetings and so on and so forth. And the second is a personal interface, and I'll go through this. So these are the 3 things that we talked about, right? Competency, potential, and fit. So that's the professional interface. So look at your technical competency, the managerial skills, the leadership skills, the teamwork, communication, and so on and so forth. But on a personal level, they're looking at informal experiences, team events, off-premise interactions, social media, like what does your LinkedIn look like? What does your Facebook look like? Common acquaintances, they talk. The people talk about other people a lot. I have a cool story to tell, like informal experiences. I remember I worked at a company, I was fairly young, and I moved into that new company, and somebody said, you know, every Friday, somebody needs to get some sort of dessert. That's just a team bonding, building exercise. I'm like, that's fine. So every other month, my name would come up. And what I realized is, in that meeting, the VPs and the senior VPs would show up. And for some reason, people would skimp on dessert. They would get like the cheapest stuff you could find, like Safeway cakes and stuff. Like, I can't eat a Safeway cake. I would not give it to somebody else, let alone a senior leader. So I said, okay, fine. I'm gonna change that, because I think that adds to my perception. If I am thinking about an experience in not so positive way, I'd like to change that. So I went to Brule. Does anyone know Brule's, like 11th Avenue? I went there, spent a lot of money. Like, it was like $60 or $80. Got really good desserts, put it over there. People really enjoyed it. I had 3 senior leaders come to my room and ask me where I got that from. They're still my mentors today. I mean, I was technically competent. Like, that's a given. That's a table stake. But what they really liked is I had something else to offer. I was shocked by that experience, because I was like, wow, this has such a major impact on someone. I did not know that. So, and that's the whole point of this presentation is, rather than reacting to something, you can know a whole bunch of stuff, and then you can proactively take some steps to build your brand. And so from then, I started thinking, yeah, this is how people think of me, and this is very mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive way of thinking about it. And so whatever I do, whatever I say, however I say it, needs to be of a certain quality level. The experience needs to come out. It needs to be very palatable to the other person. So breaking it down even further, what is a brand? Part 2 is, let's just focus on the professional stuff, because that's basically what we are here for. Communication. I think everybody understands a whole lot of this stuff, but not reacting is part of communicating. And I learned this kind of the hard way when one of the bosses told me that, hey, you know what? You shouldn't be reacting to things when you don't have to. And I was in a leadership role, so bad news comes up all the time. And he gave me a ratio. He's like, 80% of the news you'll hear is bad. That's why you have a job. I was like, yeah, that's true. I was like, so don't react to it. I was like, yeah, that's great. And I didn't realize that was impacting my brand. So after that time, I made sure that I didn't react to any bad news. And things are fine. Like, things keep going on. Projects were completed. I got great bonuses, no problem. But a lot of people don't realize that not reacting is part of communication. Regarding teamwork, I think everybody understands most of these areas, but ability to follow is teamwork. It's very, very important. If you like someone, don't like someone, does not matter. At the end of the day, I think we're all professionals. When we come to work, sometimes there's delegation to you or from you to someone else. There has to be mutual respect and trust that somebody's technically competent, and the other individual is a rational person. I find that a lot of people who become just managers, just newly formed managers, can't delegate. They just want to do everything by themselves, or micromanage, right? So part of teamwork is being able to delegate, trust, and so on and so forth. And the ability to follow. Some people just don't want to follow, and that impacts their brand. When somebody gets, a couple of my students got this, like, you're not a team player. It's like, what does that mean? Like, I don't understand what that means. Oh, you don't take instruction well. And they couldn't break it down. But when they see this, and they see it written over there saying that, yes, you need to be able to follow instructions. Sometimes it is a prescriptive role. You have to just take instructions and do something. That's it. About leadership. So leadership is all about vision, drive, integrity. This, I would say, is definitely it probably makes up 80% of the potential, right? Managerial is just the day-to-day tasks and all that kind of stuff. But I would say having a vision, drive, integrity, managing your time, that goes into becoming a great leader. If you can't manage time, if you can't manage your own time, how are you going to manage 3 or 4 other people? That's the logic, right? And so people want a promotion, but they want to become managers. But then the company's looking for leadership, and that's when you become a manager. It shouldn't be the other way around, otherwise it just doesn't work. Does it happen? Yes, but and managerial is just managing administrative processes, human capital, managing the task environment, and so on and so forth. And we already talked about technical competency, right? So that's quantitative thinking, qualitative analysis, technology, and so on and so forth. So even here, I would specifically to the engineers that everything is not quantitative, right? So sometimes you have to be in the qualitative space, and you say, okay, this is the best guess, this is the worst case, best case, and take a decision and move on. And that is being part of technically competent. Technically competent doesn't mean that you have to have a number saying that this is right. That's not how life works. So a lot of my students prepare for these interviews, or they are trying to project a very strong brand, and they've done all of this stuff. The question that they ask me is, if I'm going to go into this job, let's say at McKinsey, Bain, BCG, I'm an archaeologist. How am I going to drive all of this? How am I going to portray all of this? I'm a farm boy who went to Peru, worked in a sandbox, and then you have a C-suite. Like, there's a huge disconnect. My job is to help them understand that they've already probably done this. They just don't know how to categorize each and everything. So once we go through the process, it's about 10 to 12 hours of it. They have articulated stories about themselves. They believe in what they've done. And I'm talking about another guy who was a VP at Barclays in London. And we were going through his personal interview questions, and he had tears in his eyes because he just couldn't get through it. And I try to rationalize that. It is very difficult to think about yourself and put your achievements down. It just is. That's human nature. That's what I've seen in every student. They just don't believe what they've done. And all of these guys are from Yale, worked in Harvard, and like all these Ivy League schools. And I'm like, you guys are very smart. There was a student I had who worked as a trader, so software engineer, worked as a trader, very successful, built a company, sold a company, wanted to come into BCG, and he wasn't sure whether BCG would hire him for a trading specific role. And I couldn't understand why he didn't understand, because he'd done everything. He pretty much had retired, like he was done. And so he did not perceive himself as successful, I think, in some ways. And so I had to help him articulate that. And so I help people build brands based on things that they've already done, achieved, and also look into the future and think about what they can do, because they draw confidence from what they've achieved. So the next, obviously, logical step is, okay, this is what a brand is. How do I navigate the process, right? This was the most difficult part for me, and this is the most difficult part for my students. And so the way I've broken it down, and this is what I use for all of my students who've gotten into all these 3 firms, is a 4-step process, right? So first is awareness. You need to recognize the need for transformation. And that's at events like this, or you read something online, and so on and so forth. The second is knowledge. So you need to say, okay, I think I know what this means. I just don't know what it looks like, what it feels like. I need something that's more tangible. So that's where people evolve thinking to define a personal brand, saying, okay, this is what I am. And this is more of where my students go from here to here when they understand the past, what they've done, and how they categorize the past. Then the next step is, okay, you know yourself. You kind of know what the environment is, where you work, the political landscape, the cultural landscape, and so on and so forth. The next step is to develop a skill. So you can develop your brand. You can manage simple situations. For example, not reacting or leading someone through a difficult time in a personal or professional scenario. And let's say you're not even getting paid for that, but that sticks with people. The fourth one is then mastery. So you obviously have to master it. You want to project a brand, manage complex situations, manage large teams. People see you as a leader. They want to follow you. They're eager to listen to what you have to say, how you have to say it, and you can help other people. And there's different ways to get this, right? So the first step is presentations, self-assessments, and self-help and all that. So you can do this in the comfort of your own home. I've seen that, and that's fine. And I would say 80–90% of people are aware of what they need to do to get ahead. They've seen it, they've heard it, they've talked about it, and that's it. Gaining knowledge, that's where you need a group of people. It's a safe space, it's very confidential, where you can discuss specific situations and your responses to a situation and how you should have handled it and so on and so forth, and get the group or the crowd to help you understand or rationalize the situation. I can't stress the fact that like-minded people meeting up and understanding different situations is it's a life-changing event. The last company I was at, not BCG, the one before that, they spent $30,000 just training people, just soft skills, right? And I was paired up with non-technical people on purpose, so I understand how they think, and we'd solve puzzles, and they had a different way of solving it, I had a different way of solving it, but we'd solve it at the end of the day. But they spent $30,000 a year just with this, because the education system doesn't do it. And so, but that's a global company. They did it. Not every company has the time and the resources to do that. In the future, it could be lower. But then, if it's your career, it comes down to you. Like, how much effort are you willing to put in? How much time? How much resource are you willing to put in? Are you willing to trust other people, meet with them, have a safe discussion? That's very important. So that's why accelerator groups, discussions, and regular engagements are very important. Then you understand yourself, you understand the context, you understand perspective as to how somebody else would do something. Are you being reasonable? Are you being unreasonable? Is the other person right? And you basically very quickly understand there's no right or wrong answer. It's just different contexts, different situations, and how you should handle something. Developing a skill, that takes professional guidance. That takes help. This is where the big guns come out. And you really need to think about everything from vision to just your physicality. So a brand, you can see it from far away. Like, a person doesn't have to come and talk to you to see what kind of brand you are. They see how you're dressed, and they start making assumptions. They might be wrong or right. I'm not judging, but I'm just saying that's human nature, right? So this is extremely important if you're very serious about understanding what you need to do from different dimensions and how do you get there. So this is more one-on-one engagements. It becomes very serious as to what to wear, how to project yourself, how to talk, even speech therapy. How do you present yourself in meetings? I got coached on where to sit in a meeting. What was a power pose? Like, I had no clue. I was like, does this stuff even happen? I was like, yeah. So everybody said, you sit right at the edges of the table with the long edges. They said, no, you got to sit right in the middle, because then you have the 10 heads here and 10 heads here, and you seem very powerful. So these are the soft skills that you need to understand, is what message are you going to deliver in a meeting? How should you posture yourself? If you're going to go ask your boss for promotion or deliver a difficult message to a supervisor or somebody who reports to you, what should you do? Because that all impacts your brand. The fourth one is mastery. And this is difficult. This is after you understand 80% of who you are and what your context is. This is really for targeted situations as to, okay, I'm going to go into a new job, so how do I reposition myself? Remember, when the situation changes, that is an opportunity to rebrand yourself. So disruption is good. If you ever want to change a job, if you ever want to change a group, you can redo everything. And so I've done this with a few people. I mean, that's pretty much 60% of my job is when people want to go to 3 or 4 different firms, and then they want to advise the C-suite or the board of directors. There is a certain element of executive presence that is required. There's no doubt about it. They're not going to get hired if they don't. The acceptance rate is 1%. So 1 out of 100 people get accepted into those jobs. So everything needs to be right, pretty much, right? And we're talking about Ivy Leagues and everything is in order, that kind of deal, and then you get those jobs. So these are the targeted situations that I really deal with. And so we've gone through the 3 stages. So the first one is, this is part of the awareness. The second is accelerated groups. I think Leveling Up has something where you can go inside, and I think Mike can design something which can be confidential. Like, 2 people from the same company don't show up, that kind of stuff. And then the third box is all about mastery and skill development, which is more bespoke. So this is the process and how you navigate it. Do you have any questions around it? Has somebody taken any formal training to number 3 or number 4? Does your company help you do that? I'd like to know. I'm just asking.
I have a question. Is it linear? Like in the slide, like could you do like 2 and 3 kind of together?
Yes, you can do them concurrently.
Yeah.
It depends on where people are at with the comfort level. With me, what happens is people are here, and I have to bump them up here within 3 weeks because they have an interview coming up and they need to be ready. So it depends on your priorities and your needs and so on and so forth. Yeah, and your time commitments and all that. But yeah, we can discuss that even more. Like, you feel free to contact me or Mike. But I'm happy to take any questions if you guys have any.
That's a quick question. Do you typically see that anybody in the C-suites or any executives or any mid-managers, do they tend to be stuck at a certain brand, certain perception that it's hard and inflexible to move around, or is it always pretty flexible for people to recast their brand?
You can recast your brand. Like I mentioned, there needs to be a disruption, or there needs to be significant effort from folks, even in the C-suite, to kind of overhaul their brand. Remember, the stakes just keep going higher. The rules are exactly the same. But in the C-suite, one mistake can cost you the job, right? It's that simple. Maybe the staff level, not so much. When I was working with BCG, I work with, for example, a CIO quite a bit, 3 or 4 weeks of a major company in Toronto. And the CEO would come and ask me, what do you think of him? Do you think he can do this? Do you think he can do that? And literally the question was competency and fit, right? And so they're getting this feedback loop all the time. And so, that's one way they test it. The second way is interactions and meetings. That's where the spotlight is on you. But what I've seen is the people want to rebrand themselves. They try to go, but they generally stay with the same company or the same group, get their help, and then move on. So they've rebranded. But I'd say start building it early on, because once you're used to the branding concept early on, that sticks with you. That's what helps you get to the C-suite, right? So you can play the game better, but everybody else is playing the game really good. Like, there's no novices there. Everybody knows how they got there. If that answers your question. Any other questions? That's it.
Brand is just really about consistency in terms of how you show up.
More than that, how do you define consistency? And then consistency, yes. But consistently, what do you want to be? Like, so it's a very personal question for different people. It's like, yeah, Nike is consistent. Well, so is Under Armour, but why do you keep buying Nike? Like, that's just a very simple example. But there's some things that Nike does differently, but they've branded themselves a bit differently than any other thing, right? It's more nuanced than that. That's basically what I'm trying to get at.
Thanks, Mank.
Thank you.
Well done. Appreciate it. So actually, so Mank mentioned Nike. Everybody familiar with the current controversy? Colin Kaepernick mean anything? So the commercial that the guy is attached to, have you guys heard clips from that one? Has to do with no limits. And I'm going to leverage that and say that's what this is about. We're about, and can we flip to the other presentation, Tim? Thanks. Leveling up is about making sure that you have no limits. I want to make sure you can get to the leadership potential, the leadership excellence that I know you're capable of, and making sure that there's no barriers to that. So can we flip to the slide that talks about the little cards everybody has? Today, everybody was given a little postcard. On one side, there's a guy looking at a mountain that he's about to get over, and talks a little bit about leveling up. The other side of the card are the key points from today's talk. So I want you to remember what you learned today. Otherwise, you got a little bit of lunch, you got your calories for the day, and heard a talk, but without the ability to remember it and put it into action, nothing happens. So I want something to happen. I want today's talk about building your personal brand to stick with you and for you to be able to elevate yourself to that next level. So that's my free gift to you. Have that card, hang it in your cube or in your office, and make sure you don't forget to always build your brand. Second point, so Tim mentioned I got into strongman. I think I'm retired now, although if the urge to eat a lot of food again bites me, I think I'll go back into it, because you get to eat a lot of food when you're a strongman. That's the like truck pulling and log lifting and rock lifting sport, world's strongest man stuff you see on TV. I didn't make it to the TV level, but I did pretty decent with it. If we can flip to the next slide. The analogy I will draw with my strongman training to what we're doing here today is in strongman, just as in any gym training, there's the personal time you need to spend with the weights. There's the personal effort you have to put in, that one-on-one, getting your knowledge, getting your experience in. That's required. But no Olympic athlete, no professional strongman ever got to that level by just spending time themselves in the gym. The next level up is group training. In a gym, you have group classes. You have, in strongman, I would get together with a group of friends and we would train each other. We would encourage each other. We'd correct each other. As a group, we would meet regularly and we would level each other up. So I want to invite you into what we've called accelerator groups, and Mayank had that in his presentation, thank you, to help you grow that knowledge and that skill set in an environment where you have your peers holding you accountable, encouraging you. You have a sage, an experienced coach that would sit in that group and would guide the team and keep participants on the rails, but really the benefit of that group is having your peers help you out and help be in the same place, have the same problems, have the same challenges, and you get to hear how they're dealing with their challenges. They get to share in your experiences, and you all get to learn together. So I want to invite you into those. If you're interested in that, and actually I forgot to grab my little cards or little feedback forms in the back there. On the top of the pile, if you wouldn't mind, sorry, what's your name? Jennifer, thanks for passing those out for me. Really appreciate that. So if you're interested in joining one of those accelerator groups, check the little box on that feedback form, give me your name and email address, and we will make sure you get signed up for one of those. And we have a number of professionals like Mank listed on the website. You get to pick which one of those you would like to have facilitate your group. So somebody that fits well with you and the vision and direction of your career. So jump into that, please. And finally, I want to invite you to join the Leveling Up movement. We're looking to disrupt an industry that has made this leadership excellence unavailable. We now have technology that would allow us to video connect with an expert anywhere across the world and get the leadership skills and somebody that really speaks our language and can really help us out. So we're looking to disrupt that industry and that movement. So I invite you to, you can either check off the box on the forum there, or hop on our website at Leveling Up, 2 L's. We're Canadian, so we've got 2 L's, levelingup.ca. Hop on our website and give me your email address, and we will make sure that you are part of this opportunity to grow your skills to become the world changer that I know you can be. You are going to be an exceptional leader. It just doesn't need to take your entire career to get there. We're going to get you there fast. So appreciate your time. Are there any questions before we break and let you guys get back to your day jobs? Yeah.
I actually have a question for you. So I was looking at your profile and your previous experience you had before joining BCG, and it was very much engineering and oil and gas. How did you change your brand to go from oil and gas company or engineering companies to BCG? Like, what did you have?
Strong brand.
Like,
So here's the thing, right? Like, I was an engineer, but I went into project management early on. But then I built business plans for a large organization, and then I realized that I liked the non-engineering aspects a lot more. But for those jobs, it was very clear. Like, start networking, but even at the networking stage, these companies are they're very cognizant of the fact that that you need to project your brand from day one. The interview starts then. It doesn't start the day they say come for an interview. It starts the day you start talking to them. So I started talking to them in 2012. I interviewed by 2015, that kind of time frame. But yeah, so they kind of made up their mind up front that they wanted to hire me.
did you go back to school? Like, because I see a lot of people like doing MBAs because they want to go into consulting, but I was wondering if that's something you did.
No, I have a lot of students who are MBAs and non-MBAs. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, all they're solving is problems. And so like the guy who's an archaeologist, he's going to be doing this, right? He has a PhD from Yale. And so his first question is, can I do this? And 3 weeks in, he's going for an interview. He's like, yeah, I can do this. So MBA is not required. That's more of them trying to.
Well, thanks everybody for coming. You have my contact info, so please reach out at any time. I'm happy to chat with you about your leadership, about your career, and about how we can ensure that you get to do the things that you are planning to do. So thanks. Tim?
Just one final remark, I guess. So first, thank you, Mayank and Mike, for coming in today. Maybe collectively we can just show our appreciation to both of them. And then the final thanks is actually to all of you in the room. Thank you for being part of the Synapse community. So there is a community of practice here at Suncor called Synapse. It's a crowdsourcing platform that really seeks to increase the employee experience here by connecting you with short-term cross-functional assignments, by expanding your professional networks, and by increasing your knowledge through events like this. So we're grateful for having organizations like Leveling Up connect with Synapse for events like this. Keep your ears open because we have more of these type of events coming down the schedule. And again, just thank you for joining us today.